Hello and welcome to World Insight with me, Tian Wei. Huawei's Chief Financial Officer Meng Wanzhou has set foot on China. Meng, along with Chinese diplomats, landed in Shenzhen Saturday night on a state-sponsored charter flight. She left Canada after reaching an agreement with the United States to defer prosecution. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Hua Chunying said the fraud charges against Meng are, quote, political prosecution against a Chinese citizen and an act designed to hobble Chinese high-tech companies, end quote. It's been a long journey home, but one Meng Wanzhou will certainly cherish.
Meng Wanzhou received a hero's welcome on her return to China after fighting extradition to the US for almost 3 years. Huawei's chief financial officer and daughter of the company's founder was finally released and allowed to return home.
我终于回家了。
I'm finally back to my motherland.
经过1000
The long wait overseas was full of struggles, but after I stepped down from the airplane, I can feel the exciting warmth of my homeland.
Miss Meng was detained at Vancouver Airport in December 2018 after a warrant was issued by the United States for a range of charges linked to alleged breaches of sanctions against Iran. It was a relieved-looking Miss Meng who left her home Friday on her way to attend what was her final extradition hearing. With the extradition request dropped, a Canadian judge said she was free to return to China. Under the terms of Meng Wanzhou's release, she has until the end of next year to meet the conditions set by the court, at which point the US will drop the threat of prosecution altogether. The hope now is that tensions could finally start to ease between China, the US and Canada.
Okay, for more on this, and now joining us in the Beijing studio, Victor Gao Zhikai, Vice President of the Center for China and Globalization. Mr. Gao, good to see you.
Thank you for having me.
We have very limited time for this segment, but I'm very excited to talk to you. Mr. Gao, you know, Ms. Meng back home. U.S. dropped the prosecution, particularly the extradition against Ms. Meng. So what does that mean in terms of future?
First of all, it's a big occasion of happiness and joy for the Chinese nation. I hope it is also a very big day of celebration for the Canadians because the two Michaels also went back home safely. And I hope it's also a very good day for the United States because this happy release allowed both China and the United States to put the bitter days behind us and try to move ahead onto better days. I'm always an optimist. I always see the better side. When I'm in the bitter, dark tunnel, I try to see the light on the other side of the tunnel. So you're suggesting
this issue actually is being settled for now with win, win, and win?
I hope so, because there are different ways to deal with this. One is to keep focusing on the bitterness of this whole thing, and we are brought back to more than 1,000 days of trauma and saga and all the bitterness. The other way is whatever that happened, and we adopt a forward-looking attitude. We look into the future. We look into possibly better days in China-US relations.
I remember sitting with you as guests in the studio when Ms. Meng came back to China from the plane, and there was a lot of joy in the air, of course, also in our studio, right?
Absolutely.
But now, moving beyond that moment, you know, Huawei's story, how is it likely to be continued? What about for other Chinese tech companies? You know, the competition between China and the United States in terms of science and technology particularly.
Well, first of all, Madam Meng Wanzhou signed the DPA. She needs to abide by the provisions, whatever she had agreed to in the DPA. And
until
by
December 2022.
Exactly, by satisfying all the conditions she agreed to, then all the charges against her will be dropped more than 1 year from now. Now, for Huawei, it still faces charges against it leveled by the U.S. Prosecutor, so they need to deal with that case as it is. They need to use all the best lawyers they can find and come up with the best defense, and hopefully they will win that case. Now, for tech companies in China, they need to learn bitter lessons from this whole saga, because for the executives, they need to know what is the implication of the long-arm jurisdiction of the United States. They may disagree with that, of course, They may object to that, but they
have to deal with the realities.
They need to avoid being entangled by all this legal web that the United States is infamous about. And then for tech companies, they need to figure out a way to strive for excellence without, for example, being bogged down by this China-US rivalry, if I can use that word, and try to avoid being buttressed by the US charge and manhandling against Chinese companies.
Right. Before we go, 40 seconds if you can, Mr. Gao. Looking at the realities right now, a lot of people are pondering about what we went through, right, with the case of Ms. Meng. But a lot of people are also thinking about how can we all get smarter in a way, and also be able to deal with in a matured way. We have been, and how can we learn from this, right? So, Mr. Gao, your thoughts?
Absolutely. I think both China and the United States need to be smarter. I think one big lesson I hope the Americans will need to learn is that it will be futile if you try to push China against the wall as if there will be no consequences. China will stand very firm on matters of principle and defend the legitimate interests of its nationals, including Madam Meng Wanzhou. Now, I hope China can also learn. China can know better what can be expected from Washington. They can come up with all kinds of traps or schemes, etc., try to halt China's development. We need to deal with this as it is and become smarter and wiser in order to outsmart the American politicians.
And the business executives, they really need to learn how to protect themselves as well.
Absolutely, in terms of financial
so
transactions, transfer of technologies, RPR protection, you name it.
Victor Gao Zhikai, as always, what a pleasure. Thank you so much,
Thank
sir.
you very much.